Everybody, peace. Welcome to the Sorry to Bother You NFL show. Wherever have you are listening, we're so grateful to have you here with us. As you guys know, I'm your host, Sean Cottle, and we've got a wonderful show for you today, guys, for our NFL show. We are going to be covering a lot of topics because this is our first time covering the NFL this week. And listen, a lot has been going on in the NFL recently within the past 48 hours involving both NFC and AFC teams, particularly a couple of teams in the NFC East and the NFC North. Those teams being the Washington Commanders and the Minnesota Vikings. And we're also going to be covering some news in the AFC West involving the the Vegas Raiders. And listen, each team is going to have their own segment, so we're going to cover it that way. And there's just a lot of news that we're going to cover, guys, so we're not going to waste any time. We're going to get right into it. But before we get started, if you haven't already, be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well, so you guys can stay updated on all related content that we post daily. And be sure to follow us on Patreon as well. You can do so by going to patreon.com, clicking on the search bar, and typing in Sorry to Bother You Show. That way you can get access to all of our exclusive content that we post daily. And if you'd like to support our network and our company, you can do so by following the link in the ticker below. It's streamelements.com/Sorry to Bother You Show/tip. Once again, it's streamelements.com/Sorry to Bother You Show/tip. None of this is possible without you guys as fans, so we're so grateful and honored for all the love and support that you show us. And none of this is possible without you guys, so we're excited to have you on the show. And be sure to share your thoughts in the chat room throughout the show, so we can hear your guys' thoughts. So, with that being said, let's go and get right into it, guys. Like I said, the Washington Commanders are apparently going into a state of rebuild right now. As you guys know, on Monday, the Washington Commanders traded Montez Sweat, their star DN, to the Chicago Bears for a third-round pick. A second-round pick, for Montez Sweat. And then the San Francisco 49ers traded their third-round pick for former number 2 overall pick, Chase Young. And that occurred yesterday. As you guys know, both Montez Sweat and Chase Young are due to be free agents this upcoming offseason. The Commanders did not pick up the 5th-year option on Chase Young's rookie deal, and Montez Sweat is obviously due to be a free agent, like I said. And what does this say for the Washington Commanders? Well, it says that the Washington Commanders have all but squandered away another opportunity for their team to be successful. Ever since 2019, people that surround the NFL have raved about the Commanders' D-line, and particularly their front seven with Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne, and like I said, Chase Young and Montez Sweat. Those 4 guys alone were considered in most circles to be the best D-line in pro football. And with that, the Commanders were only able to procure one playoff appearance in the past 4 years, and that was during the 2020 season. And outside of that, every year they finished below 500. With last year, obviously, we know what happened. They lost 5 of their last 6 games, and they blew an opportunity to make the playoffs. And this year, they're currently 2 games below 500, already 0-3 in the division, and the chances are pretty slim that they'll make the playoffs. So, what the Commanders are doing are more than likely they're hedging their bets, and they're saying, listen, we're just going to start the rebuild. We've got new ownership here. We're going to get rid of Ron Rivera at the end of the season. All my sources are saying that, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that the Commanders are going to be firing Ron Rivera at the end of the season. Listen, they brought in Eric Bieniemy, and before the season started, I talked about this on the show that if the Commanders don't perform well this season, or if they don't make the playoffs, they're going to get rid of Ron Rivera and replace him with Eric Bieniemy as a head coach. But basically what we've seen within the Commanders' offense so far, that seems unlikely as well, that for Eric Bieniemy to be named the head coach. So they might do an outside hire, but I think that's more so. I'm not sold on Sam Howell. I know, listen, people in the organization were sold on Sam Howell at the beginning of the year. But now that, listen, we talk about this all the time, teams start to get more film on quarterbacks and guys, and it starts to take away their first and second and third options. It's now these guys have to make reads on the fly, and so that's what Sam Howell's doing. Teams are starting to get more film on him, and they're starting to see how he plays, his tendencies, and it's harder for him to make plays. And that's the same case with Sam Howell. So the atmosphere around Washington's locker room right now is one of frustration and one of discontent. I wouldn't say dysfunction. Guys are just frustrated. Guys are tired of being there. And we heard Jonathan Allen's post-game speech after they lost to who did they lose to, the week before, and to the Giants, and we saw how he said he was frustrated. He's been doing this for 7 years, and rightfully so. It's frustrating, to be in an environment like that, right? And it's unfortunate because there's been a lot of talent in Washington, especially on the defensive end. But however, the offense could never be consistent enough to be of anything of substance. Listen, the past 5 years, the Commanders have ranked below the bottom half of the offense in the league. They've only ranked above 25th in offensive efficiency once in the past 5 years, and that says all that you need to know about Washington's offensive woes. And that's been part and parcel to why they haven't been successful. And new ownership is saying we're just going to clean house completely. And another team that's looking like they're about to start cleaning house completely are the Las Vegas Raiders. We'll talk about them later in the show. But the Commanders are looking to rebuild, and that's what's going to be happening. Listen, they traded away the number 2 overall pick, Chase Young, and like I said, Montez Sweat. And the only reason they haven't traded away Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, is because those guys are still under contract. And if when you break up with your partner, or when you go through a breakup, in those moments right there, you start to learn a lot about your partner, and a lot of the truth begins to be revealed. Even if it's said in malice, or if it's said out of hurt, the truth starts to be revealed to some extent. And this is no different. Listen, now reports are coming out from the Washington camp that Chase Young didn't have good work ethic, and he didn't have a lot of focus, especially during his rehab. And those are reports coming out of Washington's camp to sort of justify the reasoning for them getting rid of Chase Young. But however, none of those reports, I didn't hear any of those reports or anything like that for the past 4 years. I didn't hear anything like that. I didn't hear anything like that when he won Defensive Rookie of the Year. I didn't hear that when he was going through his rehab sessions for the past pretty much year and a half. And I didn't hear anything the likes of that when he's 4th in sacks in the NFL. So this is the first time I'm hearing anything of anything close like to that, to questioning his work ethic and his commitment and his focus. Though I never heard any reports like that in Washington until now, to this trade, and people were talking about it within the Washington camp, talk about how undisciplined he is, and it comes across as them trying to justify the reason for trading Chase Young. And I'm not saying those reports aren't true. I'm not saying they're not true, but I'm not saying they are. But what I know about how relationships work and how sports is really just a microcosm of life, I know that when people break up and things are said out of malice or jest, normally the truth is in there somewhere. Even if what's being said is not coming from a good place or a place of constructive criticism, the truth is still in there somewhere with what's being said at the end of a relationship. And remember, there's 3 people that always say the truth: children, drunks, and angry people. So, one side may be angry, and we're seeing what's being said. And we'll just leave it at that. And you guys can come to your conclusions about what you feel about that. But leave your thoughts in the chat room. What do you think about this? What do you guys think about the Commanders looking to rebuild? It's a good move. Listen, but also, what Washington got in return for Chase Young says a lot about his value across the league. Listen, he number 2 overall pick. They got a 3rd rounder for him. Now, obviously, there's some questions because, like I said, he's coming off a torn ACL, as well as he had another injury as well. It's slipping my mind. Well, if you guys can correct me on that if I'm wrong. While Montez Sweat was traded for a 2nd round pick. And I think that says all that you need to know about what each player is valued at across the league. So, do those comments made by Washington have some validity to it? Who knows? Let me know what you guys think. Leave your thoughts in the chat room. But in our next segment, guys, we are going to be discussing the direction that the Minnesota Vikings are going in after the recent injury that occurred to Kirk Cousins. So, guys, be sure to stick around for that. You're not going to miss it. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. In case you missed the first segment of our show, we just discussed the recent shakings that have been going on in Washington and what that means for the organization as a whole and what direction they're going in and what to expect from them moving forward and how this is a representation of what happens when an organization squanders the opportunity they have with the talent that is currently constructed and it's on the roster. And it's unfortunate because this is something that has been going on in Washington for the past 3 decades. And, with new ownership in there right now, could this be a step in the right direction? Completely cleaning house. We always talk about the importance of establishing culture when a new coach or a new owner comes in and how that first year is spent cleaning house and getting rid of the old regime, whether it be players, coaching staff. That remains to be seen. We know that Ron Rivera is part of that old regime, and for all intents and purposes, I believe it looks like Ron Rivera is going to be fired or removed from the head coaching position at the end of the season. So that's the direction that Washington is going in, and that appears to be the case. But in this segment, guys, listen, we're going to be discussing the recent news involving Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings and the trades they made and what that says for the Minnesota Vikings franchise as a whole and what direction they're going in moving forward. So let's go ahead and get into that, guys. So as you guys know, on Sunday, Vikings quarterback Kirk Cousins tore his Achilles in their win against the Packers. And listen, that means that Kirk Cousins is going to be out for the season. Though Minnesota is now 1 game below 500, 2 games back of the Lions in the NFC North. And 1 game back of the Lions in the NFC North. And it appears that Minnesota still might have an opportunity to make the playoffs, and it appears that Minnesota thinks that's the case as well by making a trade for Josh Dobbs for Arizona Cardinals quarterback Josh Dobbs. As you guys know, Josh Dobbs was just benched this past weekend by Arizona, and a mere hours after that, they traded away Josh Dobbs to the Minnesota Vikings in exchange for a 3rd-round pick. If I'm wrong about that, guys, one of you guys can correct me, and I'm looking it up right now just to confirm. I want to make sure I get the right information for you guys. So the Cardinals had traded Dobbs and a 7th-round pick to the Vikings in exchange for a 6th-round pick. My apologies, not 3rd round, 6th-round pick. And now, obviously, this only occurred because, like I said, Kirk Cousins tore his Achilles, and Josh Dobbs proves to be a formidable backup quarterback, but also will serve as a great placeholder for the rest of the season in terms of helping Minnesota to make the playoffs. And I say that because, Minnesota's in a position to where they want to make the playoffs this year, but they don't want to trade away too many of their assets because we know that Kirk Cousins just agreed to that extension, so he will be back next year. I know that was a point of contention and a lot of question marks for a lot of guys surrounding the league, whether the Vikings would trade Cousins to the 49ers based on what we've seen with Brock Purdy in San Francisco. But it appears that Minnesota is committed to Kirk Cousins. I think that's the right move. I think Kirk Cousins is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFC. So I think that's the right move by Minnesota, but it shows that Minnesota is still looking to make the playoffs. That's what I talked about after the performance against the 49ers on Monday night last week. It looks like the Vikings are starting to trend in the right direction. And by trading for Josh Dobbs, it shows that they think the same thing. And Josh Dobbs proves to be a affordable placeholder. They gave up a 6th-round pick, to get him. And Josh Dobbs can prove good enough to be a game manager for Minnesota because it looks like Minnesota's defense is starting to improve. The running game is starting to improve, and we already know what the offense is in Minnesota and how efficient they can be. So Dobbs won't be needed to make enormous amounts of plays, but as opposed to just getting the ball in the hands of their weapons. And we know that Justin Jefferson will be back in a couple weeks, if not next week, if I'm not mistaken, coming back from his injury. So Minnesota's still in prime position to make the playoffs and make a run at the playoffs, and frankly at the NFC North Division. And this is an aggressive move by Minnesota, and it also shows that when Kirk Cousins returns, they still expect Kirk Cousins to be the starting quarterback, and Josh Dobbs will most likely be relegated back to the backup position. But for right now, Josh Dobbs will be the starter in Minnesota. So let me know what you guys think about that. What do you guys think about this move? Is it a good move or a bad move? What does this say about the Minnesota Vikings in your guys' opinion? What does it say about the Arizona Cardinals? It looks like they're going full rebuild. I don't want to use the word tanking, but that's what it looks like they're doing now. It's the only reason they benched Josh Dobbs. And it looks like they're completely moving on from Kyler Murray. We saw that they didn't activate him off the IR, and it looks like they're going to be cashing in on the Caleb Williams sweepstakes if he decides to leave college. So that's the state that Arizona's in. That's the state that Minnesota's in right now. So Minnesota still has a great chance of making the playoffs, especially with the addition of Josh Dobbs, like I said, and with the improvement of their defense. So it'll be interesting to see moving forward how that looks. And it also shows that there's no rush for Kirk Cousins to return. He takes his time getting healthy and rehabbing. We all know how debilitating Achilles injury can be. Though Aaron Rodgers is making tremendous strides from his injury, but there are anomalies, right? But let me know what you guys think in the chat room. What do you guys think about the Vikings trading for Josh Dobbs after losing Kirk Cousins? Do you think it's a good move, bad move? Do you think this will help Minnesota make the playoffs? I think it will. I think it's probably the best backup that was on the trade market. But let me know what you guys think in the chat room. What do you guys think about this move? And in our next segment, guys, we are going to be discussing the state of affairs that's going on in Vegas right now. So be sure to stick around for that, guys. You're not going to miss it. Be right back. All right, welcome back to the last segment of our show. In case you missed our previous segments, we just discussed the state of affairs that Washington Commanders are currently in, and what direction the Minnesota Vikings will be trending in, and what their plans are for the rest of the season. So we know that the Commanders are looking to rebuild now by trading away half of their starting D-line with Montez Sweat and Chase Young, and the Minnesota Vikings are looking like they're making a push for the playoffs by trading for another quarterback in Josh Dobbs after losing Kirk Cousins for the rest of the season due to an Achilles injury. And let's transition over to the AFC now and talk about a team that is also looking to rebuild now with the Las Vegas Raiders firing Josh McDaniels after 3 seasons. And currently 3-5 in the year. No question that the Raiders have underperformed, have been underwhelming since Josh McDaniels' arrival in Vegas, and I don't think this comes as a surprise to anyone. Maybe the timing of the firing is a bit surprising, but no one is surprised that Josh McDaniels got fired. And listen, it's a surprise that Josh McDaniels was able to keep his job for this long. Josh McDaniels, in all of his locations as a coach, has not been successful. And I'm not one to talk about other people's jobs and whether they should or shouldn't have jobs, but I know it will be very difficult for Josh McDaniels to find another head coaching position in the near future in the NFL. Listen, some guys are great coordinators, but not everyone's a great coach. It's hard to be a great coach. They're few and far between. It is a very difficult position to be the head coach of not just any team, but an NFL team at that. And not everyone's built for that. And it doesn't appear that Josh McDaniels is built for that position. And we see with the talent that's been in Vegas and their constant underperformance, and I'm not surprised what comes next will be the Raiders getting rid of trading away either Devontae Adams or Jimmy Garoppolo and complete is starting full rebuild because it does appear that they're looking to clean house, and I would agree with that. I think that's a good move for them. But Josh McDaniels, like I said, has been underwhelming and underperforming since he's gotten to Vegas, and it's only surprising that he was able to keep his job for this long. But so that's why I've seen so far on that, but I want to know what you guys think. What do you guys think about this? Leave your thoughts in the chat room. Do you think this is a good move for the Raiders to get rid of Josh McDaniels? Are you surprised that Josh McDaniels was fired? Do you think he'll be able to get another job in the NFL in the near future? Let me know what you guys think in the chat room. But guys, that's it for our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's been a wonderful show. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well, so you guys can stay up to date on all our latest content. And be sure to follow us on Patreon as well. You can do so by going to patreon.com, click on the search bar, and typing in Sorry to Bother You Show. That way you can get access to all of our exclusive content that we post daily. And if you would like to support our network and our company, you can do so by following the link in the ticker below. It's streamelements.com/sorry-to-bother-you-show/tip. Once again, it's streamelements.com/sorry-to-bother-you-show/tip. Like I said, none of this is possible as you guys are fans, so we're so grateful and honored for all the love and support that you show us. But with that being said, guys, we'll be back again same time tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, with another edition of our show. Until then, continue to stay safe, be vigilant, make smart decisions, and